Hello everyone, welcome to another build log. This is a secondary PC that I am building for my fiance. She's going to be using it mostly for some light gaming and some video consumption and web browsing. For its purpose, I decided to go with a i5 6600K quad processor. Since this wasn't really going to be used for any video editing, I decided to not go with a super overkill 6-core or 4-core 8 threads processors. I decided to go with a kind of a conservative 6600K. It will still allow me to do some overclocking since I do plan to water cool it. This will also give me, water cooling it will also give me better performance when it comes to games. So I thought this would definitely give her the best experience. In terms of motherboard, I decided to go with a Gigabyte Z170MX Gaming 5 motherboard. This is a matx motherboard. One of the main reasons that I chose it was because there's not a whole lot of Z170MX matx motherboards. This is in my opinion, one of the better looking ones. It has a red and black color scheme, which goes really well with the other computer and the rest of my office. My main rig is a black and red build, and other items in my office tend to have red accents, so I thought a red and black theme would go really well with the rest of my office. This board has very future-proof features such as USB Type-C connection, and also when I was deciding what board to buy, this board went on sale on Newegg, so I got it for around $125, I believe, which makes it one of the more affordable Z170 boards. Gigabyte is a company I like a lot when it comes to PC hardware. MSI and Gigabyte are two of my favorites to buy hardware from. These two are two Taiwanese companies, much like ASUS and Acer. These guys have been making hardware for a long time and they make really good hardware. When it comes to big PC hardware manufacturers, my favorite are definitely Gigabyte and MSI. I've only owned one ASRock motherboard before now, and I definitely didn't have any problems with it. It worked wonderfully. With ASUS, I have actually had some problems. I used to own a Rampage 5, which was a super expensive motherboard, and I've had numerous issues when it comes to getting bad motherboards, some bad drivers, bad internet drivers, things like that, DIMM slots not working, and I've had to RMA a few of those. However, with all the Gigabyte and MSI motherboards I've owned in the past, they've all worked very, very reliably. They haven't really had, at least I haven't noticed much problems when it comes to drivers. So when it comes to hardware, I would definitely recommend Gigabyte and MSI. I'm not exactly sure about how lenient Gigabyte is with their warranties and stuff, but MSI is definitely one of the best when it comes to warranties. They sometimes, I believe for them, they do not even require a receipt. As long as you have a serial number for the part, they can look up when it was shipped to the retailer, and they will go, they will honor their warranty by the shipping date. Here you can see the insides of a Lian Li PC-06SX case. The tempered glass side panel is removed, and the top panel for the radiator mount is also removed. Here you can see some of the inner parts of the case. You can see where the hard drive cage is. You can see where the PSU is mounted. One of the features of this case is that it comes with a stand that lets you kind of put this case vertically, so it takes up a lot less space, and it's a very space efficient case. It takes up a very small amount of space on your desk. However, due to the height of the case, it is actually fairly roomy inside the case. Despite the fact that it doesn't take up much room, this case is also wall mountable, so if you really don't want anything on your desk cluttering things up, taking up space, you could definitely mount this and it would look beautiful. This case, I guess definitely the number one best feature about this case is its look, and I have to tell you, this case definitely looks even better in person. The images and videos online simply cannot do it justice. When you see it for the first time in person, you will definitely be impressed. Now, this case definitely has its positives. The look is definitely impressive, and the amount of space it can take up potentially is very advantageous. However, this case is not without its flaws. One of the biggest things I've noticed while working the case is that this case is not super friendly for builders. In this day and age, especially for a $400 case, I would expect rubber grommets in the wire holes for I would expect those even in the $100 to $200 cases, let alone a $400 super high-end case. This leads to problems such as cutting into your wire braiding, cutting into your hands, just overall uncomfortable to work in. And the placement for the cable holes is not always ideal. It certainly wouldn't hurt to have a couple of more pass-throughs for the cables. And this case, I wouldn't call it a con, but for my purposes, my purpose of water cooling, the top radiator mount was very, very difficult to work with, and there definitely was not enough room to really comfortably pass tubes through. I did have to use a couple of extra fittings and things to make things work, and they eventually did, but it's going to be very difficult for me to take it apart in the future, and that's definitely my number one complaint of working in this case. Now, I've mentioned that this case was $400, so that is definitely a con. This is definitely out of the price range for most builders, I would say. If you have the money to spare, this is definitely worth the $400. If you see it in person, you'll understand and if you feel it in person, how sturdy the build is, how light the frame is, and how strong the frame is, how well put together it is, you'll understand why it is worth $400. And let's just be honest, tempered glass is definitely not cheap. I don't know how some case manufacturers are able to do tempered glass on a $80, $90 case nowadays, but this case definitely has its merits, and it definitely has its shortcomings. This case advertises that it can support up to 3 120 millimeter AIO or radiators on top. My original plan was to put a Corsair AX760i on top, but I've noticed that the space on top between the radiator mount and the top of the motherboard backplate is simply not long enough to comfortably fit anything other than a super slim radiator. Even the H105 AIO water cooler was not really easily installed for me. the tube had, one of the tubes had to be bent at a very, I would say, uncomfortable angle. I don't believe it would kink, but who knows what would happen down the line, a couple of years. And I feel like that's definitely something that could be designed better. This was probably not something that the case designers really thought about. I'm sure this case was not designed for water cooling, but nowadays the AIOs are so prevalent and so many people use it. It certainly wouldn't hurt to see if it fits the H105, you know, one of the more popular Corsair AIO coolers. For power supply, I decided to go with the Corsair AX760i. One of the main reasons is that I already had braided cables for them. I got the Corsair branded, I believe these are actually manufactured by Corsair themselves, the custom white sleeve cables, and they are compatible with all the AX series. And the 760i came with some red accents as well, so it went really well with my build. For the SSD, I went with the Sandisk 480 gigabyte SSD. It is a fairly standard, nothing too impressive about it. About 550 megabyte per second in terms of read, 500-ish for write. For the SSD, I did not mount it in with the equipment that came with the case. I wanted it to be more visible, so I decided to just use some double-sided tape, double-sided Velcro tape. I've been using double-sided Velcro for computer builds for a long time, and these work super well. Anytime you have something small that needs to stick, and I think I've even used it for something as big as a 250 milliliter reservoir, and these things really hold up really well. And for any builders that's looking for an easy option to mount things and display things in different areas, and you know, you don't really know what the best way to mount it is, just use some double-sided Velcro tape. It works wonderfully. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hope you've enjoyed the build log so far, and I will see you in the next video.